Yeah, a lot of noise indeed. We're going to try to cut through that right now. I'm joined here at the big table by Roger Casale. He's a former Labour lawmaker and founder of New Europeans. That's a group dedicated to ensuring that EU citizens know their rights. Roger, it's good to see you again. I mean, it's unbelievable that we are where we are in this Brexit process. I'll ask you what we've been asking all day. Who is in control of Brexit tonight?
Well, tonight the cards are in the hands of the European Union. It's a great irony that in 2016, one of the reasons that many people said they voted leave was to take back control. Well, tonight, control is with the European Union because Theresa May has to go to the European Council, and what happens next is dependent on not on what she says to the European Union, but what the European Council say to Theresa May.
To Theresa May. And they know that if she goes back to London and tries to put her plan up for a third vote, logic would tell us that Parliament would reject it again, unless it feels like it has no other choice. It feels like we are at an impasse and that there's no way out. Is there a way out? You've got a plan, or a possible plan.
Well, some of our members, some of our chapters put an idea forward in an open letter to Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn and the EU at the beginning of February. And we said that there needs to be a compromise. We said that MPs need to back the withdrawal agreement as it is, but put into the withdrawal agreement a clause, a sunset clause, which requires there to be a confirmatory referendum. In other words, if that referendum doesn't take place, the withdrawal agreement would be void. But if the referendum does take place, two things can happen next. Either Britain will vote to remain, in which case the withdrawal agreement is not required, or Britain will vote to leave again, in which case it will leave, but on the basis of the withdrawal agreement itself. And I'm very pleased to say that two MPs have now taken that idea up, Peter Kyle and Phil Wilson. And if the deal comes back next week, if a way can be found, and maybe this is the way to bring the deal back next week, because if they can add this element in, it could break the impasse. There has to be a compromise.
There has to be a compromise. But Roger, this idea sounds very sensible. Why did someone outside of Parliament have to propose it to begin with, and why has it taken so long for it to even find ears in Parliament?
Well, I think the reason that our members came up with this idea is because they're based in Brussels and also in the UK. We're an organisation in Brussels and London. Actually, our members are in Rome, in Berlin.
You're Europeans.
We're Europeans.
Yeah.
So we can see it from both sides, because I think one of the very strong elements of the Westminster debate that your viewers would have noticed is that there's very little understanding of how the rest of Europe works and what the expectation of the rest of Europe. So I think we could see it from both sides. I think the other thing is that we represent EU citizens who are the victims in all of this, who are the ones who have suffered most, whose lives are in limbo because of the uncertainty of Brexit. And therefore, we gave a lot of thought to how we could come up with something that would be a way to break the impasse, to actually de-risk Brexit. And one of the things about the proposal that we put forward is that it makes the withdrawal agreement the default. So it really does take no deal off the table. And the big risk to citizens is the risk, and the risk to business is the risk of a no-deal Brexit.
But crashing
so we
out.
wanted to come up with something that would do that, and I think that's where it came from.
You say that this just shows, though, how little London understands Brussels. How is that possible, though? The UK has been a member of the European community, the EU, since the 1970s. How can you be in the same club for so long and still be strangers?
I think it's an institutional thing. There are individual members of Parliament who do invest time, who do come across to Brussels and meet with their counterparts in other national parliaments and also in the EU. But institutionally, Britain is very fixated on Westminster, and also the style of Westminster politics is different. Everything is reduced to a binary choice.
That's right.
For or against. But we see it, particularly in the Brexit situation, that life is much more complicated than that. And actually, you really need to have a lot of options on the table to discuss. But the way in which dynamics of Westminster politics works, it reduces everything down to a binary choice.
First past the post, that's right. There's been a lot of criticism outside of the UK that Brexit is an example of not only British government losing control and authority, but a British democracy failing. I want you to listen to what the U.S. President's National Security Advisor, John Bolton, told Sky News today. The people, actually it's a quote from him, the people of Britain, he says, have voted. When is the political class going to give effect to that vote? The president has been clear, the U.S. president, that he wants a resolution of this issue that allows the United States and Britain to come to trade deals again. He sees huge opportunity if Britain's status can be resolved. Is he speaking, truth there? I mean, are lawmakers not following the will of the people? Is that what we're looking at as well?
Well, I think lawmakers and your viewers and others know that what Donald Trump says, or his spokesman says today, and what Donald Trump says tomorrow is not going to necessarily be the same thing. I mean, he has a reputation of being able to contradict himself even in the same sentence.
Sure.
So I think it would be a mistake. I think it would be a mistake for British people to think that Britain can leave the European Union and that the United States is going to look after British interests. The United States' interests are going to be based on having a good relationship with the European Union, with Angela Merkel and Donald Tusk and the leader, and Emmanuel Macron, the leaders of Europe, and with Britain, of course. But I'm afraid that Britain is a big country, but it's not as big as the European Union combined. And I think when it comes to Donald Trump and dealing with other regions around the world, particularly when it comes to trade issues, size matters, and Britain's not big enough.
We're getting, Roger, we're getting here across the wires that the Prime Minister May says we will now not leave the EU on March 29th. So that means that an extension of some sort is going to take effect. As I understand, that's coming across right now. She's saying that we will now not leave the European Union on March 29th. So we're going, this window of opportunity now has been opened time-wise. Tell me what you're hoping is going to happen. So this amendment or this motion here that has been spawned by your efforts, when is that actually going to become actionable in Parliament? When are we going to see that actually take effect in the House of Commons? Well,
it really would need to be next week because we're going to the wire with the Brexit process. And whatever Theresa May has said tonight, unless Britain revokes Article 50, Britain is still leaving on the 29th or reaches an agreement with the European Union to extend. And the Speaker of the House of Commons has said that she can't bring the withdrawal agreement back for a third time unless there's a substantial change. Now, what I would hope is that the compromise proposal that we put forward and that is being taken forward by Peter Kyle and Phil Wilson MP, who are doing a fantastic job to build consensus around this idea in the House of Commons, could actually form part of a new motion that could be brought to the House of Commons next week in such a way that the Speaker could be persuaded that this represents such a substantial change to the motion that he would allow, which he would do, he would allow it to be debated, so that instead of it going through as an amendment to the motion, it would become part of the main motion, part of the motion that the government itself would table. And then Theresa May could say, look, back my withdrawal agreement, but I'll let you have a referendum as well. The only way to break the impasse is for everybody to do one thing that they don't want to do.
Exactly. But you, at the end of the day, though, you are still banking on the British people when they do have that second referendum opportunity to say, we don't like it, no to Brexit.
They will have the opportunity to vote for Brexit again. But they will do it on the basis of facts. They will do it on the basis of the withdrawal agreement, on what's actually been agreed. They wouldn't do it on the basis of a fairy story that was told to them last time.
That's what I'm asking you. Do you think, though, that when they have this Brexit plan in front of them, that they will still say yes?
It is quite possible that you would have the second referendum and Britain would still vote to leave. That concerns me. I believe Britain will vote to remain in a second referendum, and I will be voting to remain. And as you know from our previous discussion, I don't believe that Britain will leave. But I think there is a risk, but the much bigger risk, there is a risk that Britain would vote to leave again. But if it does vote to leave, on our compromise proposal, it would leave on the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement would already have been passed through Parliament and agreed. and there'd be no more discussion about that. And so Britain would leave on the basis of the withdrawal agreement, but it would have the opportunity to vote to remain if, having looked at the withdrawal agreement, it decided that it wanted to stay after all. What couldn't happen anymore would be a no-deal Brexit. And that's what now needs to be taken off the table. And that's what the compromise proposal would do.
No one wants that. And, you know, without even taking sides here, I think that anyone listening to the voice of reason would wish you and your group well and hope that this compromise agreement actually gets a chance, because as it looks right now, the country and Europe both are at an impasse. So we appreciate you coming in tonight, Roger, and let us know what happens. We'll be watching anyway. Maybe we'll be talking again next week. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.